Good morning, and thank you so much, friends, for being with me. So, we just went through an 8-week program, and right now you've completed that and, you know, hopefully downloaded the ebook if it's available. It'll be available before May 5th. And that will be something that will allow you to kind of go through this and try to say like what parts resonated with me, what parts didn't. And in those basically 8 chapters that we went through, there was a lot of information presented to you about why a weight inclusive perspective to diabetes, preventing or managing diabetes might be helpful. And I also went through a lot of the research, kind of all kinds of different stuff. And so my suspicion is that you're like, how do I implement that? How do I actually kind of sit with that and kind of bring in the things that are working? So that's what I'm hoping we can talk about now. For those of you who are planning on attending the live, instead of just hearing me talk at you, the live is really, it's a Google Meet link, and we're just going to be in our own little space talking to each other and turning around and saying like, hey, this is what I'm hoping for. So I really hope that you'll take some time and join me. I know it's a little bit late if you're on the East Coast, but I did want the West Coast people and the people on Pacific time to be able to join in as well. And I just really, I'm looking forward to meeting you. I'm really looking forward to hearing your story. And this live event where we're all together is really an opportunity for the community, for that cohesion of, hey, I'm also trying to do this, to come together. And I think that's really important because that's one of the things that actually helps us lean into the growth mindset is actually not feeling alone, feeling like you belong, like, oh, I'm in it with all these other people and it's not just me. And that's really a big support when we talk about kind of embracing the growth mindset. One of the things that I like to share with my clients at Nourish is really understanding the change process. And if you go through the Sunday Coffee, you'll see that there is a lot of information that I talk about, which is about acceptance and change, and they kind of go hand in hand together. So if we can, let's just go through a little bit more about the change process. So we talked about discover, and that's that DEPC, so discover, explore, play, and challenge. So when you are in the growth mindset, you're turning around and you're opening your mind up to discover things. I remember my English teacher. I think he might have been my freshman year. Maybe it was my sophomore year. But he had a sign. It says, your mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's opened. And so it's one of those things where the growth mindset is turning around saying that you're open to new learning. And I think that that's really a great thing. You discover something. But just because we discovered it doesn't mean we really understand it. And I always like to ask myself, at what level of learning do I know? Like, could I recognize it as, a subject? Like, oh, this belongs to that subject. Would I be able to answer a multiple choice test? So if somebody said multiple choice, is it A, B, C, or D? Could I answer that? And then the other one I always love is, kind of the essay. And we recognize that our learning gets to be incrementally more fluid. So when people ask me things about geography, I have zero understanding of geography. I'm not fluid in it. So if somebody gave me a city and said, which country does that belong in? I would fail. I'm terrible at it. But there are some learnings that I have that, like, literally I can write essays. I don't need to buff up on anything. And so you recognize that if you discovered something, you're not at the ladder. You're not writing essays. If you discovered something, you're literally trying to guess, like, what category does this? Is this math? Is this geography? Is this something to do with food? Oh, my kitty's visiting me. This is Misty. So again, when we talk about learning, we're really starting with this, you discovered something. And hopefully in the last 8 weeks, you discovered something. Now, you don't, just because you discovered it doesn't mean that it's part of your life. It's not fluid. So once you've discovered something, and you can go back through that ebook and decide, like, what do I want to explore? What do I want to learn more about? Where are there gaps or deficits in my understanding or learning? What about this information was I like, ooh, that really resonated with me? Sorry about the cat. What about the learning really resonated with me? And that might be things that you want to explore. I always think that those are the things that either piqued your interest or you already knew it. You were like, oh, I want to explore it and make sure that I got it right. And sometimes I'll do that. After you explore, you want to play with things. You want to turn around and say, like, oh, I learned this. I want to play around with it. So maybe it's, I learned about, food, or I learned about exercise, or I learned about, research around weight inclusion. And so again, you learned about something, you want to dig in deeper. You want to move from just recognizing the category to maybe the multiple choice, or maybe you're curious enough to actually get into that essay level of understanding. Once you explore something, again, there's no commitment here to actually do it. Just because I know something doesn't mean that this is something that I want to bring into my life. It's just knowledge. And I always think like knowledge is like putting money in a bank account. You may not use it right now. It's there, and it's there to help you when you need it. But it doesn't mean that you're actually spending it. It doesn't mean that you're actually using that knowledge, but it's stored away, it's safe. So again, once we, kind of get something and we've explored it, now we decide, of the information that I got from this 8-week program, what do I want to play with? And I think that that's really the fun part. Play is fun. So when we talk about the change process, we do need to bring a level of fun into this. And as I teased in the introduction, why? Well, if there's no fun in your life, if learning about, a weight inclusive approach, or learning about managing your health or a condition like prediabetes or diabetes, or even just trying to prevent it, if it's all dry, if it's all yuck, then you're going to abandon it. You're never going to bring it into your life. And this is where we're really trying to say, like, what was fun that you just learned? Like, what was it about these last 8 weeks that you were like, actually, that was kind of fun? Because that's the piece that we need to bring in to actually make sustainable change. And a lot of my clients, I'm neurodiverse, and one of the things I really recognize is my energy levels drop. And fun is one of those ways to bring my energy levels up. And so what happens is I'll, kind of get hooked by something, and then all of a sudden I realize, like, I'm tired and I didn't notice it. And so I really kept track of my energy level, and I realized that I do need a dance break, or I do need to do something fun because all of my mental energy is just draining out of me. And if I don't notice that and I don't replenish that, I'm kind of grumpy. So when we talk about new learning, when we talk about the growth mindset, growth includes joy. It includes pleasure, fun, play, silliness. And if you work with me at Nourish, we have dance breaks. We got to dance it out. We got to high five. We've got to rejoice in our own success. And that is super, super important when you're leaning into the growth mindset. Why? Why is it so important, Migrit? You keep talking about this, like the growth mindset. You're leaving what is familiar, so very comfortable, to what is unfamiliar. And if there's no joy, if there's no sparkle, if there's no fun, you're not going to make that leap. You're not going to say, I want to lean into the unfamiliar. I want to do something I've never done before. If it's all expectation and pressure, and I have to be right, and I've got to be perfect, which, by the way, is the definition of diet culture, you're not going to do it. You're just not going to do it. Yeah, sure, once. You'll take the test, but you're never going to go back to that knowledge. You're never going to go back to that idea. because you didn't enjoy doing it. And again, when we think about the play process, one of the jokes I always like to say is every nature show has this two phrases. One is evil man's influence. We're always encroaching upon their habitat, or, we destructed something. And that's a given. And yes, we may not be great, stewards of the land. But there's always a section in every single, nature video that says, play is nature's training for the hunt. And I think that is just, it's a good reminder for you. Play is how we train to change. You're playing with the change process. Again, many, many people say, oh, the Discover, Explore, Play challenge is how I change. It is. It is how we change. So once play is fluid, meaning that, oh, I know how to play with it. I know how to manipulate, the spices, or I know how to do meal prep, or I know how to check my blood sugars, or I know how to, figure out how to fit exercise or activity into my life, or, oh, I've got this great, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And you're like, yeah, I got it. Then we challenge ourselves. Then we turn and say, well, could I do it again? Could I do it tomorrow? Now, a little thing about me you may not know, but in a past life, I was drug and alcohol. I was in the drug and alcohol field, and I worked with people who were coming out of addiction. And one of the lessons that I took from that was really recognizing when we talk about addiction, we actually try not to talk about consistency. So the reason why we don't talk about consistency is, oh, I have to do it again and again and again and again and again. I have to be perfect. I've got to get it right because I've got to be super consistent. And if I'm talking and you're hearing the expectation go up, that's exactly how it lands. When we talk about being consistent, it really lands as I've got to be perfect. And it really has, if I'm not consistent, I failed. It really has the weight of expectation on it. And so in the, when we're talking about finding and maintaining sobriety, we talk about taking it one step at a time, one day at a time. How can you do it again tomorrow? And so we shift away from consistency and we ask ourselves, how could I repeat this behavior? And that's it. That's the whole thing. What could I do that would allow me to do this again tomorrow? And that's it. That's like, in a nutshell, how the change process works. So instead of turning around and saying, how am I going to do this forever? Or I have to do this forever, which is so much expectation. We just ask, it's like, I did it, yay. It worked, yay. Double good. So how can I do this again? This thing that worked, how can I do it again? What allowed me to do it the first time? What would allow me to do it again? What would make doing it again easier? So all of a sudden you're starting to see, oh, we're shifting to systems. And that's right, we're shifting to a system from this one and done to, oh, well, I had a lot of fun playing with these recipes. How could I imagine doing that again? I loved having my lunches already made the night before. How could I do that again? Oh, I really enjoyed moving my body in a way that felt good. How could I do that again? And this is where I think most people forget what the purpose of doing it again is about. And this is it. So important. So if you need to, write this down. So when we challenge ourselves, we're not challenging ourselves to be perfect. We're not. That is not why we're trying to challenge ourselves. We're trying to figure out what worked. Did it really work? It worked once, but can I actually do this? And you're trying to adjust how this new behavior fits into your life. And so we're trying to adjust. And we're trying to say, I think it will work. I've done it once. And I think I could actually bring that into my life. I'm going to challenge myself to do it. And what are you looking for? It's not that you did it. You're looking for opportunities to make it easier. You're looking for ways to make tiny little adjustments. You're looking to discover something. You're looking to say, oh, I did it for a day, a week, a month. What did I discover? And you restart that cycle again. And hopefully what you're trying to discover is what worked. I know. All of you are saying, what? I thought I was discovering what didn't work. No. What didn't work doesn't matter. What did work does. And whatever worked, if you go, oh, I discovered what worked, that's where you want to really focus on. This worked. Why? Why did it work? What was it about this that made it successful? What is it about this thing that I'm doing that worked that I could do again tomorrow? What is it about this thing that worked that I think I could do again tomorrow that I could make easier so I could do it again and again, and it's easy? That is the whole change process. So as we go through these last 8 weeks, as you're starting to turn around and say, I got a lot of information, I don't know what to do with it, Mikrit. Ooh, it's overwhelming. DEPC, you discovered stuff. We explored it. Maybe you're in the play process right now, which is awesome. High five. Woo. I love it. Now you turn around saying, could I imagine doing this again? How? How could I do this again? What would make it easier for me to do it again? And once I've done it a couple of times, what did I discover? This worked. What worked that I discovered? How could I make this easier? How could I keep doing it again? Do I want to? I figured out this works. Is this something that I need to do indefinitely? Or is this something that because I discovered it and I made some intervention, I'm all set. I'm good. I don't need to really rethink this for a while. So that's what we're trying to discover. And we're really focusing in on what worked, not what didn't work. Thank you again so much for joining me for Sunday Coffee. We went a little bit longer than normal. And again, this is my plug. Please, please, please join me for the live, which is on Wednesday, April 30th from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I really want to meet you. I'm super excited to have a conversation. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.